right, great, wonderful. Today we're dealing with lesson two of our civics course presented by nupu.org. Now, lesson two deals with, we're going to focus on the purpose of government, what is government and its purpose, and lesson two we deal with constitutional law. So that's the basis of lesson two, and I'm going to write this down here for our students. What is government and its purpose? Question. And we're dealing with, let's see, something is law, constitutional law. Okay, when dealing with constitutional law, we're dealing with in America, in this country, in the United States, we have two types of constitutions, and that's something we want to discuss and go in depth in. It's the two types of constitutions. You have what is known as a federal constitution. You have what is known as a state constitution. So that's very important for the students to understand. Okay, so before we get into that, we have to explain what is government and its purpose. Okay, now we went over that last week, and we just want to, this course will be in-depth theory and concept on what government is. Now I'm going to put this board up. This is an additional writing board for us. Alright. Okay. And there we go. Push this back some. Voila. It's perfect. Okay. What is government and its purpose? Can you answer that question? What is government?
Government is basically when individuals of the same culture get together and they form laws and they form rules and regulations for which all need to abide by. They come to an agreement to say that we're going to be governed by these rules that we set.
Okay. All right, we can go with that. Basically, go a little bit further into that. Government basically is a nation of people. A nation of people. What is a nation? A nation of people is a group of people who share the same cultural values and lifestyle, who pledge an allegiance to each other to protect one another in their culture, to live their cultural lifestyle. That's the formation of a government. So the formation of government is when a group of people come together, pledge an allegiance to one another to protect each other to live their cultural lifestyle. And they create a body of laws to enforce their way of lifestyle, to guarantee security, to protect their way of life. Okay, so that's the essence of what a government is, as well as its purpose, which is to protect its nationals so that they can live their way of life. Okay, so it's very, very extremely important to understand what a government is. Now, being that we're here in the United States, one of the challenges that most people have, and which we want to discuss in detail, is what type of government is this? What type of government is this? Okay, and we can answer that question two ways. Okay, I'm going to go into the second phase, which is dealing with the constitutions. Now, United States in explaining the type of government here, we have what is known as, we covered some of this last lesson 1, is that we have a confederation. Do you recall that? Okay. We have a confederation. Confederation basically is a government made up of sovereign states. Okay. So you have the 50 states. Put the word here. 50 states. Now, each of the 50 states are their own sovereign government, their own sovereign country. But what they decided is to create a union of sovereign governments. And they said, we're going to create a union, which means that this union will create what they call a federal government. So each state retains their sovereignty as an individual state, but then they acquiesce, what that means give up some of that sovereignty to the federal government. Very important to understand this. Extremely important, crucial to understanding this concept. So you have two types of government existing in the United States. You have what is known as a state government, and then you have the federal government. The federal government consists of representatives from each state. They call that Congress. So they have representatives from each state called Congress, which consists of the federal government. In the state governments, you just have representatives of that state who are there to protect and to establish a body of law for their state. Federal government is representatives from every state in the union who they represent the interests of their particular state and what their states need. So it's very important to understand that, to understand the breakdown on the difference between the state and the federal government. Now, there's a body of law that governs the states. There's a body of law that governs the federal government. What came first, the states or the federal? State came first. So the states had their own government, which means the states had their own, guess what? Constitution. Before the federal had it. States had their own, because they were all sovereign, had their own individual way of doing things prior to the creation of the federal government. Okay? So the states have their own constitution. What is constitution? It is a body of law that a government creates as codes that they're going to live by. The people there, they're going to live according to these particular principles and code. That's their constitution. The way we live, how we are going to protect one another. That is their constitution. So it's very important. The states had it, and then they created a federal constitution. How every state, what principle that every state will live by. That was the federal constitution. Which is basically, when they created the federal government, they was basically creating, when they said every state was going to have, for the most part, a capitalistic society. Every state was in agreement with setting up a capitalistic society. Because if you go back to the original states, which were the 13 colonies, each colony, they had buying and selling goods and services. And they all believed in being able to turn a profit, to be able to sell as much goods and services to turn a profit so that they can live their way of life. They was all into that. That's what the revolution was all about. They didn't want to split the pie anymore with Great Britain. They was tired of doing that. They wanted to keep all the profit for themselves because they didn't saw no benefit in the Great Britain being their protector, their government being that. They felt that the British monarchy, the kings and the lords, were unfair in their distribution of governing them. So they decided, well, we don't need them. We'll cut them out, and we'll just govern ourselves. And we'll have our own system of government to protect our way of life, which was, for the most part, capitalism. This is the basis of the government. So the Constitution, the federal Constitution, as well as the state Constitution, was designed or written to guarantee people's choose their way of life. How you decide, no one had the ability to tell you how you should live. That's in essence what the Constitution, for the most part, was guaranteeing. That's why you have the Bill of Rights. If you look at the Bill of Rights, First Amendment says what? What do we have there?
Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
Right. Petition the government to have freedom of speech, to freedom of religion, all these things. They put that into their constitutional body of law because they were being restricted of these things in their prior government with the English monarchy. It was telling them what they can and cannot do. And this particular constitution was written to tell people what you can do, what government can't do. These are your rights. In fact, there was an argument why we even need the Bill of Rights. You know why that was an argument? Because they felt it was common sense. They said, why do we need to write this down? This is common sense. Nobody should be able to tell you what religion you want to be a part of. No one can tell you what you can and cannot say. No one can tell you, They're like, well, I got to write that down. They say, and the reason why others felt we have to write it down, because there'd be a day, there is a day, in their day, people, check this out. Like today. See that? People did not know their rights. This was for people who did not know their rights, who can go study it and read it. That's the whole purpose of this lesson. That's the whole purpose of this course. This is why we're doing it. Because over 200 years later, we're still dealing with the same scenario. Over 200 years later, we're dealing with the same scenario where the argument is government is too intrusive on people's rights and way of life. And now people have to be taught their rights. Things that we should have known, been taught from birth. We should have been groomed and educated. We're not. Now we have to teach people again their rights. And that's why the allegedly founding fathers felt it necessary to record these things, to have a record. People should not be in fear of their government. No one should be afraid to petition their government. That's what the petition that we're talking about, that's what that's about. That's a right. That's a constitutional right. Now you know, it's a First Amendment right. You have the right to petition your government, any grievance you have. You have a right to amend your government, to amend the way it's operating, to change it. You have a right to impeach any elected official if you felt